Men often say a man's home is his castle, but they sometimes forget to mention that this castle was built by their wives and they're merely garrisoned residents on the payroll. Today, we're talking about how an old armchair belonging to Vadim's mother can unravel what seems to be a solid family. Though, honestly, there wasn't much to unravel, but let's take it step by step. The crash in the hallway was so deafening, it sounded like a grand piano being dropped from the 9th floor without an elevator. I flinched, spilling coffee on the pristine tablecloth, and then a smell hit me. A heavy, sickly sweet aroma of old dust, mothballs, and something sour, like unwashed wool. "Take the load," Vadim's voice boomed, filled with a patronizing tone he'd adopted 6 months prior, precisely the day he was laid off from sales. I walked into the corridor. Right there, in the middle of my hallway, I emphasize, my hallway, blocking the path to the kitchen, was the armchair. A monstrous, dirty burgundy thing, with peeling armrests and a sunken seat that seemed to hold the impressions of all Vadim's ancestors, going back 5 generations. "What is that?" I asked softly. "Mom's, her favorite." Vadim wiped his sweaty hands on his jeans. "She's redecorating, sprucing things up. Said it's a shame to throw it out, it's a relic. It'll stay with us for a while." He added, "Don't wrinkle your nose, Tamara. It's vintage. This stuff costs a fortune these days." I looked at this vintage piece. From a tear in the upholstery, a clump of gray foam peeked out, resembling a hernia. "Vadik," I said, trying to breathe through my mouth. "We have a minimalist aesthetic, light walls, and I have a dust allergy. This thing is a biohazard." "Here we go again." He rolled his eyes and dramatically sighed, as if he were the one paying the mortgage and utilities, not me. "It's hard to help Mom." She, by the way, fed us when we first got married. Fed us meant 3 jars of pickled patty pan squash 5 years ago. I remained silent. Arguing with Vadim when he was in noble son mode was pointless. He kicked the armchair, pushing it further into the corner, scratching the parquet floor with its leg. "That's it. The topic is closed. It'll stay for a month. Is there anything to eat?" "I'm exhausted, worked like a dog." He walked into the kitchen without taking off his shoes, leaving muddy footprints. I looked at the deep scratch on the floor, then at the armchair. It stood in the corner like a monument to my foolishness. This was the beginning of the end, though at the time, I thought we'd just have a furniture squabble. Tamara. My name, in some silly list, suited me perfectly. Firm, a little old-fashioned, but as reliable as a Swiss watch. I'm 42. I'm the chief accountant at a mid-sized construction firm. I can balance ledgers, charm tax inspectors until they apologize, and earn money. But understanding people? Apparently, I'd forgotten how. Vadim entered my life 3 years ago, charming, with a dimple in his chin and grand plans. He was living with his mother, Ludmila Sergeyevna, in a small apartment on the outskirts, where time seemed to have frozen somewhere between Brezhnev and Gorbachev. When we married, he moved in with me. My apartment is my fortress. 3 rooms, city center, a renovation I'd meticulously managed for 2 years, scraping together every last penny. Vadim arrived with a single suitcase and a laptop. Tamarochka, you're my support, he'd say, kissing my neck while I worked on reports. As soon as I launch this project, we'll live like kings. I'll buy you a fur coat. No, a car. The project changed every 3 months. First, it was importing Chinese gadgets, then cryptocurrency. Now, he called himself a personal growth consultant. The only growth observed was in his ego and his belly. After the armchair's arrival, the atmosphere in the house shifted. It sat in the corner like a totem, seemingly drawing chaos to itself. A week after its installation, Ludmila Sergeyevna came for an inspection. She didn't knock. She rang the doorbell as if it were an emergency. She had her own keys. Vadim had given her a spare, just in case. "It's stuffy in here," she declared from the doorway, her beret still on. "Don't open the windows. Vadik needs oxygen. His brain is always working." She walked into the living room and patted her armchair proprietorially. "See? It's here, not bothering anyone. Tamara, you should cover it with something, a throw, so it doesn't gather dust. Do you have a throw?" "We have a vacuum cleaner," I couldn't help but retort. My mother-in-law pursed her lips into a tiny pout. "Sarcasm doesn't suit you." "Vadik, son, come here. I brought you some cabbage pies." Tamara can't bake. She's always swamped at work. Vadim emerged from the bedroom, sleepy, in his underwear, even though it was Sunday noon. "Oh, Mom, great!" The fridge was practically empty. The fridge, however, contained salmon steaks, vegetables, 3 kinds of cheese, and yogurts. But the cabbage pies, saturated with cheap oil to the point of transparency, were his idea of a meal. He called the salmon, "your grass." I retreated to my study. I needed to work, but through the thin wall, I could hear them. "You're overworking yourself. You've gotten so thin, so pale," Ludmila Sergeyevna mumbled. "And is she still buried in her numbers? Are they paying her well?" "Yes, fine, Mom. I'm closing a big deal myself soon, with 6 zeros. "Oh, my golden boy. But listen, don't bring all the money home right away. Open an account. You can put it in my name. You know how these women are. Today it's the wife, tomorrow it's someone else." I froze over my keyboard, my fingers hovering over the enter key. These women. That evening, for the first time, I checked his bank card. It was linked to our joint account for groceries. The transaction history was an eye-opener. Krasnoy in Beloy, 1,200 rubles. Steam Games, 3,500. Flowers of the World, 2,500. I hadn't seen any flowers. I scrolled down. March 8th. A bouquet for 5,000 rubles. He'd given me a single tulip in cellophane. The bouquet was for his mother. With my money, he'd bought his mother a lavish arrangement, while I received a wilting bunch from the underpass, bought with my change. I closed the laptop. There was no rage, just a cold, metallic sensation in my stomach, as if I'd swallowed a bolt. The minor skirmishes escalated into trench warfare. The Dean stopped pretending to be busy. He simply vegetated on the sofa. "I think I need quiet," he'd grumble when I turned on the washing machine. Money from the joint account began to disappear faster. I silently set a limit. "Tam, my card's not going through," he called me at work. "I'm at a gas station." Strange. Maybe a bank glitch?" I lied, gazing out at the gray city. "Fill up with your own money. You had cash from your last project. A pause, heavy breathing. Fine. That evening, he was darker than a storm cloud. You humiliated me. I stood there like an idiot in front of the cashier. Vadim, you live in my apartment, drive my car, and eat the food I buy. Where's the humiliation in that? He jumped up. You're so materialistic, you reduce everything to money. I'm a creative person. I'm going through a crisis, and you should be supportive. Support and maintenance are two different things, I calmly parried, slicing bell peppers. Just then, his phone rang. A video call. Mom. He snatched the phone, his face instantly transforming into one of a suffering son. Yes, Mom. Yes, we're having dinner. No, not pies, some vegetables. Yes, Tamara is cooking. He turned the camera to me. I didn't smile. Tamara, my mother-in-law's voice crackled from the speaker. I'm in trouble. The pipe in the bathroom burst. The plumber came, made a terrible mess. My back is acting up. I can't bend over. Have Vadik come help. Mom, I'm busy now. I have a Zoom meeting in an hour, Vadim lied. He was planning to watch football. Why don't you call a cleaning service? What cleaning service? Strangers in the house will steal everything. Have Tamara come. She's a woman. She's more used to a rag. She has a car. She'll be here in a jiffy. I froze with the knife in my hand, slowly turning to Vadim. He looked at me expectantly. Did you hear? He asked, covering the speaker with his hand. Go on. Mom's really having a hard time. It'll only take half an hour. Vadim, I just got home 20 minutes ago. I'm tired. Call her a service. I'll pay for it. You don't understand. She's afraid of strangers. It's hard for you. She's my mother. No, I cut him off. He grumbled something into the phone and retreated to the bedroom. The evening passed in stony silence, but I knew it wasn't over. They were probing the perimeter, looking for a breach. The next 2 weeks were hell. Vadim became demonstratively slovenly, leaving mugs on the polished table without coasters, tossing socks onto that very vintage armchair. Ludmila Sergeyevna called daily, complaining of loneliness, pressure, magnetic storms, and her daughter-in-law's indifference. She's turning you against your mother, she'd shriek, loud enough to be heard without speakerphone. So cunning, calculating, bragging about her apartment. Who needs her with a temper like that? I started preparing. First, I went to a notary and retrieved the apartment documents. Gifts, sales, everything was in order, no loopholes. Then, I changed all the passwords on my banking apps, withdrew cash, and hid it in a safe deposit box. There was no more cash at home. I stopped buying delicacies. The fridge now contains soup bones, buckwheat, and cheap sausages. What is this? Vadim asked disdainfully, poking a raw sausage with his fork. A crisis. I was denied a bonus at work. You'll have to endure, my dear. You'll be closing that big deal soon, right? Then we'll live like kings. He turned green but ate it. The climax arrived on Friday evening. I returned home later than usual. The quarterly report had drained me. I dreamed of only one thing, a hot bath and a glass of Riesling. In the hallway stood strange boots, women's worn-out boots, and the smell of valerian drops. In the living room, Ludmila Sergeyevna reclined on my sofa. Her legs, wrapped in a woolen shawl, rested on the coffee table, directly on an art book. Vadim sat beside her, holding her hand. Oh, you're here, my mother-in-law greeted me instead of hello. and we're dying here from pressure. What happened? I asked, putting down my bag. Mom got sick. Vadim looked at me like a wolf. I brought her here. She'll stay with us for a couple of days until she recovers. In what sense, us? She'll sleep in the bedroom. There's an orthopedic mattress, and we'll take the sofa. Vadim? My voice was quiet and steady, like the electrocardiogram of a deceased person. Your mother has her own apartment a 20-minute drive away. It has a bed. You're kicking out a sick mother? He shrieked, jumping up. Are you even human? Ludmila Sergeyevna clutched her chest dramatically. Oh, son, no. I'll leave. I'll leave right now. I'll die by the roadside. And if I'm bothering you... You're not going anywhere, Vadim roared. Tamara, quickly get some tea and fresh bedding ready. And yes, Mom accidentally spilled some Corvalol in the hallway. Wipe it up, it stinks. I looked at the floor. An oily stain was spreading across the parquet. A bottle lay nearby. You wipe it up yourself, I said. What? Vadim took a step towards me. He was a head taller than me, bigger. He was used to overpowering with sheer mass, but he forgot that an accountant isn't just a profession. It's a diagnosis. We're not afraid of numbers and facts. We only fear tax audits. I said, wipe it yourself or let your mother do it. I'm not employed as your cleaner. Have you lost all fear? He whispered, leaning towards my face. He smelled of beer. Did you forget who's the man in the house? The man is the one who built the house, not the one who lies on the couch in it, I replied, looking him straight in the eye. Ludmila Sergeyevna began to wail in the background, like a civil defense siren. Vadik, take me away. I won't set foot here again. But first, she needs to apologize. Vadim turned towards the television, where a football match was playing. He was on edge. He needed to assert his dominance right then, to humiliate me, to break me, so I'd know my place and he could go back to lying around and spending my money. He muted the sound with the remote, struck a pose like a sugar bowl, hands on hips. Listen carefully, Tamara. Mom is going home now. I'll take her. But her place is dirty, and he pointed a finger at his suffering mother, needs rest and cleanliness. Either you go wash the floors at my mother's place now, or I'm filing for divorce. Dear listeners, a brief digression here. As a man, I can only tip my hat to such audacity. It takes nerves of steel to live off someone else and issue such ultimatums. Honestly, I'm curious about your opinion. What would you do in Tamara's shoes? Would you be afraid of being alone? Or would you send such a sultan on a metaphorical sexual journey? Write in the comments. I'm very interested to know. And now, back to our story. I simply smiled. The smile itself made my jaw ache. A bold move for a man without a home or money. He smugly rubbed his hands together, thinking I'd crumble, that I'd be terrified of that dreaded word, divorce. Fine, I said simply. The silence in the room became deafening. My mother-in-law even stopped groaning. What? Fine? Vadim didn't understand. Fine, I'll go right now. Give me the keys to Mom's apartment. Vadim hesitated for a second. Then his face broke into a smug grin. That's the spirit. You should have done this long ago. The keys are in the hallway, in my jacket. And make sure everything sparkles. I'll check. I took the keys, grabbed my bag. You two relax for now, I said softly. Have some tea. I left the apartment and gently closed the door. The lock clicked. In the elevator, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. A tired woman in an expensive coat. Her eyes, however, were strange, cheerful, and angry. I got into my car. Vadim thought I'd gone to scrub his mother's floors. He's probably pouring himself a beer right now while giving his mom valerian drops, and they're discussing how cleverly they've manipulated me. The training has begun, he's thinking. I started the engine. Of course, I didn't go to wash floors. I'm not insane. First, I opened the internet provider's app. Suspend service. Click. Home Wi-Fi died. Next, mobile banking. Block all additional cards. Click. Then, I called an old acquaintance. Mikhail Mikhailovich, head of our firm's security department, former police officer, a man with a bulldog's face and a poet's soul. Mikhalich, you awake? I need help. Forceful, but within legal bounds. No need to beat anyone. Just stand there for intimidation. And your friend Grisha, who picks locks, is he free? Excellent. You know the address? Yes, I'm sitting in the car outside, waiting for you. I sat in my car in the courtyard, looking at my windows. The light was on. In 15 minutes, the TV light should have gone out. The internet was disconnected. Vadim is probably fiddling with the remote and cursing. Mikhalich's black SUV pulled up. 2 men got out. Mikhalich himself, resembling a wardrobe in a leather jacket, and the wiry Grisha with a toolbox. Well, Tamara Igorevna, shall we evict the occupiers? Mikhalich winked. We're conducting sanitation, I corrected. We went upstairs. I didn't open with my key. I rang the bell. It was quiet behind the door. Then footsteps sounded. Who's there? Vadim's voice was irritated. Tamara, did you forget your keys? The door swung open. Vadim stood there in a t-shirt. Seeing the 2 grim men behind me, he choked. Who are these guys? Movers, I lied easily, and security specialists. I walked into the apartment, not taking off my boots. Mikhalich and Grisha followed, filling the hallway. Grisha immediately went to the door and began examining the lock from the inside. Hey, what are you doing? Vadim backed away. Mom, there are bandits! He stumbled over his words. Mom, who can't walk, the dying mother. What's happening? Tamara, have you lost your mind? You were supposed to be washing the floors at my apartment. Plans have changed. I walked into the bedroom, opened the wardrobe, and pulled out Vadim's large suitcase, the very one he'd arrived with. I choose divorce. You yourself offered the alternative, either the floors or divorce. I've chosen. I threw the suitcase at his feet. You have 10 minutes to pack. Your time starts now. You have no right, Vadim shrieked, trying to regain his balance. This is my home. I'm registered here. I've lived here for 3 years. I'm the husband. You are nobody, Mikhalich said calmly, fiddling with a toothpick. You have no registration here, no lease agreement. You are on the premises illegally. The lady of the house demands you vacate. I'll call the police. Call them, Mikhalich nodded. I haven't seen Colonel Petrov in a while. He'll be delighted. We'll tell him how you threatened the owner, and your mother is an accomplice. Lyudmila Sergeyevna turned so pale she blended into the wall. Vadik, pack. Mom, what are you doing? This is our apartment. We're going to... Pack, you idiot, she hissed, grabbing her purse. They'll put us in jail. It was both amusing and pathetic. Vadim scrambled around the apartment, grabbing socks, game controllers, some papers. My laptop, I bought that, he yelled. Do you have the receipt? I asked. What receipt? No receipt means it's jointly acquired property. It stays here until the court rules, I stated. Just kidding. Take your junk. I don't want anything that's yours. He tossed everything into the suitcase in a jumble. My armchair, Lyudmila Sergeyevna suddenly remembered. The antique one. The armchair will be taken to the dump in 5 minutes, Mihalich promised. Or you can take it yourselves. There's no freight elevator here. They stood in the doorway 20 minutes later. Vadim, in a jacket buttoned incorrectly, with a suitcase from which a shirt sleeve was protruding, and Lyudmila Sergeyevna clutching a blood pressure monitor to her chest. You'll regret this, Vadim hissed. His eyes welled with impotent rage. You'll die here alone, you old cat lady. Who needs you? I need myself, I replied, and that's more than enough. The keys. He threw the bunch on the floor. Choke on them. They walked out onto the staircase, the door slammed shut. Grisha, do your job, I commanded. Grisha nodded, took out a screwdriver, and began replacing the lock cylinder. The sound of the working tool was sweeter to me than any music. Well, Tamara Igorevna, congratulations on your liberation. Mihalich smiled, revealing his fundamentally kind nature. The armchair must be removed immediately. And Mihalich, if it's not too much trouble, please take it to the dumpsters. I don't want it even on the staircase. When they left, taking the cursed armchair with them, I was alone. The apartment was quiet, smelling of male sweat and cheap mother-in-law perfume, but I opened the window to the night. The cold night air rushed in, washing away the smell, blowing out the last traces of their sticky presence. I walked to the mirror. Tamara, the owner. I opened my banking app. The account was depleted, but not critically. Now it would only grow. I blocked Vadim's number, my mother-in-law's number. Then I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of the wine I'd been dreaming of, and sat on the empty, clean sofa. My gaze fell on the floor. Where the armchair had stood, a deep scratch remained on the parquet, an ugly scar on the perfect varnish. Nothing. We'll sand it down. I took a sip. The wine was cold, tart. From below, from the courtyard, a shout carried up. I went to the window. Vadim stood by the trash bins, trying to shove the enormous burgundy armchair into a taxi's trunk. The taxi driver was waving his hands and shouting that he wouldn't take this garbage. Lyudmila Sergeyevna was running around, hitting the taxi driver with her purse. The armchair wouldn't fit. It stuck out like a swollen tongue. I watched this spectacle from the 6th floor and felt an incredible lightness. Vadim looked up and saw me in the illuminated window. He shouted something, shook his fist. I raised my glass, saluting him, and drew the curtains. The show is over. Tomorrow is Saturday. I'll sleep in, order professional cleaning. They'll scrub every inch, destroy every dust molecule, every trace of their dirty shoes. And then I'll go buy myself flowers, a huge bouquet, because I can afford it. Because I have myself. And that, damn it, is the most profitable asset of my life. This is sanitation. I am, of course, against radical measures, but sometimes, to make a house clean, you need to remove not only the trash, but also the one who creates it. Tell me in the comments, have you had such mom investors? How did you see them off? With police like Tamara? Or did you manage to negotiate peacefully? I await your stories. Let's discuss. Take care of yourselves and your nerves. And if you want to hear your own life story retold artistically, write in the comments with the note, I want a story. Briefly describe your situation. You can include names, and I will expand your story into a full narrative and voice it here on this channel. See you.